Well, it's beautiful how, in both cases, films help you realize things about yourself and about the community and how that influence your way of being perceived and perceive the world. So I would like to ask you in that case, how is your creative process? I mean, where does inspiration come from? You have just answered that was kind of your experience being here, but in terms of more formal way of working, how do you start writing? Maybe to help the people watching this. If they have an idea, a feeling, but they don't know how to portray it. Um, could you tell us about your process? So maybe that could help.
So in my case, I only wrote short films so far. So I feel like going for a feature would be like a much bigger challenge, of course. But it's something I'm very interested in one day pursuing that. But for now, I feel like for me, everything starts with little images in my head. And then you try to ground those things into little scenes. And then from the scenes, you're like, okay, who is this character? What are they doing? Where are they coming from? And then you try to like open a dialogue with your character. And then you're like, okay, what do you want to do? Talk to me. And then from small scenes that I have interest and that are, taking shape in my head, then I try to create a more structured narrative. But I feel in the beginning it's just this curiosity of just trying to ask myself, what is this image in my head and where can I take this? But don't put too much pressure, because sometimes you can get stuck because of that. Yeah, I think it's just curiosity, because you always have images in your head, I think. At least I do. I don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think that's basically my very unstructured process. And then after that, just writing down, an outline for your story, trying to reach some beats, make sure you have an arc and all that. But in the very beginning, I think it's just having this curiosity. Yeah, and inviting your characters to talk to you. Yeah.
And in terms of the narrative, how do you decide? Because you've made dance narratives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you decide that this is not just the dialogue? You know what I mean?
I think I understand what you mean. But in this case specifically, because we had the dance and it was a movement piece, I think it was just about like, if you couldn't use your words, how does your body react to those feelings? And it's about the emotional journey, I think. So once you figure out what you want to tell through the emotions, what's the arc of the emotions for that character, then it's like, how do they embody that? And then what would they say? You know what I mean? So it's almost like layers.
I'm cheating here because I have seen her film. So I'm asking questions ahead of time, but hopefully you get to watch it. It's pretty awesome. In my case, I haven't made such a subtle communication in between characters. In my cases are all very hard cut, dialogue. You say things and and you lie about things and you do not say things, but there's a dynamic. But I find that fascinating that you can go that subtle and not need any of these usual communications that we normally have. I think that's very hard to do.
I find it hard the way you do it.
To do, yeah.
Yeah, like finding the right words.
That's it.
To have that dialogue being explosive and all that, I find very hard for me. So
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. And
What about your creative process?
Okay. Earlier in the short films, it was a collaborative process. So normally the concept of the story would be a team effort between the actor and the director in this case, because a lot of those short films would be a vehicle for the actor to perform what they felt was their best ability, right? And some actors were more into comedy, some actors were more into drama, and so they tell me, Javier, I want to do a drama. Okay, what do you like? What are your favorite subjects? So I ask the actor what they, what resonates with them, and then I find an angle that resonates with me, and then we come up with the idea. As I kept going in the career, I the career. I call it a career. Sure. It's because indie filmmaking is just like being in a band, you know. And so I'm thinking that when is that a career? But anyway, I mean, the more movies you make, the more you realize that you want to make stories that you want to tell. And in Lupe Q and the Galactic Earworms, and previously the Corn Cake, Lupe Q and the Galactic Corn Cake is the short film, and Lupe Q and the Galactic Earworms is the feature film. So the idea was centrally on things that I loved, you know, punk rock and you know, my Latin identity and LGBTQ themes and sci-fi comedy, you know. And it was thanks to my partner, Natalie, when I met Natalie, and we began writing a short film first, and we wrote a feature that no one will ever see. And then now we wrote a feature together because she asked me, like, so let's ask what you want. You know, why don't you ask yourself what you want? You know, it's always about other stories. Why don't you ask yourself? So that forced me to sit down and like really put all my past into this. So that was my first experience doing this, and it's the most rewarding, really. You know, I didn't know it could be so cathartic, so therapeutic and healing. You know, but yeah, I found it much later. You know.
I just wanted to mention that I find it so interesting that you can open the space for other people to tell you what they want to do. Like, I've never had an actor coming to me and feeling comfortable enough to be like, I want to do this, can you help me, you know? So it's very inspiring to be that open, you know, and collaborative. That's very beautiful.
Totally. I think that maybe that's part of your music influence, like being in a band and getting to know in which song, which element, which instrument is going to be like more present, and letting that speak out. Because I haven't heard any other director like just collaborate so much with actors and give them the space to shine in what they believe. Because most of the times actors are kind of tools for directors, and they just arrive to the stage and just, well, please focus on this. We're going to make it in this kind of style, and just direct them, but not hear what they want to say and how they can shine better. I mean, that's very beautiful.
In short films, it's easier to do that way, that they can collaborate with you on the writing of the script, right? In feature films, it's a little bit harder because in a feature film you have an entire dramatic structure that has to accommodate certain roles. That said, when me and my partner wrote Lupe Q and the Galactic Earworms, we decided to leave placeholders for actors to come in and decide what they wanted that character to be. And I think that's healthy in any degree. It's healthy to let the actor, you know, spill a bit about themselves into the characters. Especially in this particular case, is an indigenous teenager from Canada, right, or from Turtle Island. And so it is important to me to let them speak about what their background and what their character is, right? So I just wrote a placeholder in the movie that has a lot of plot and dialogue, but not so much about their character and their background.
Well, that's very humble of you. Like, knowing that also your work as a scriptwriter and a director has its limits. And that's great about cinema, that is a collective art. I mean, I think that as a director myself, I have only direct short films, but one of the best parts of working in a team is hearing about the other readings of my own script, I mean, I can give it to the sound director and say, how do you feel it? And maybe she told me, well, I think that the wind should be portrayed in this way. And that's her point of view of my work. And it also released a lot of pressure on one that maybe just going outside and saying this is my film, it's a lot of pressure, and also it's not true because it's not possible to make a film on your own, and saying this is all ours film. I think that gives us a bigger sense of community, as you said. That can be your country, can be your career, can be your similar dreams or views to the world. So I think that that's amazing. Like just giving part of the team to speak their word and their interpretation to your script. That's nice. That's nice. And in that case, how was the change from the short film to the feature film? Like changing the way you write. Tell us that we don't have the experience on feature films. How was like also working on the patience of work like a feature demands, and also how do you manage a kind of project like that?
This is the first time that I make a short film for a feature. Before it had been independent, like short films that were their own stories, right? Their own. So I had never made a short film with the intention of turning it into a feature. And in fact, the feature idea came first. Only later I said I should make a short about the feature. In a way to prove to myself that the concept was right, you know, and to give myself practice. Because there are themes and things that I have not done before. The Latin thing is one of them, right? And the sci-fi, all that. So in Canada, there's ways for you to apply for funding of a feature if you have the short film. So sometimes the NSI, for example, has a shorts to features program where you apply for money to make a short film that can later be turned into a feature by finding more financing. So there's reasons to do it. In America, they sometimes do it as a proof of concept. When you're looking for private investors, you want to show them what you want as a feature. So they say, oh, that's easier than you have to explain. You know, it's much faster.
Which is something very interesting to know. How did you turn your short that worked as a short into a feature? You know what I mean? Because sometimes if the idea is too big or the concept is too big, it's hard to put into a short that really works.
I have something else to tell you. I was a programming director of the Vancouver Short Film Festival for 10 years. So I watched a lot of short films, okay? And that allowed me to see what short films, like you're saying, have a scope that is too big for a short film, right? And it taught me very, very interesting how some shorts don't need to have that grand finished story. They don't, you know? And to me it was an eye-opener. It was like, oh, you can make an amazing short film without having to have a beginning, middle, and end, you know, without having, you know, you don't need that. But only on short films. It's a very special medium. So by watching your short, for example, I don't know if it's instinctual, that you embody, you understand that you do not need a complete structure, which is really impressive. You know, it's harder than you think, because we are wired to do the beginning, middle, and end. We are wired to want to see that narrative on screen. And so we think, well, clearly a short film is just a feature, but short. But it's not, you know, and it takes a lot of, you know, confidence in you as a filmmaker to do that, you know.